taking advantage of Oma and Opa watching Corbin, and we are having a day date, and enjoying some fine wineries here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Look at you guys all in your shades looking cool back there, huh? Plenty of things will break. And they have.
Corbin, how many states are we adding this time? 6?
Yeah.
A lot.
Neighbors. Walls are thin. Understand that they're going to hear everything you can do. You can usually hear everything that they're doing. What in the... It's not all sunshines and rainbows like you see on Instagram, and we're not just out at national parks every day.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Why Wait. I'm Megan.
I'm Chris, and our channel is all about full-time RV living, getting out there, starting your full-time RV adventure, and not letting anything hold you back from living your dreams. And if that's something that you may be interested in starting full-time RV living, or maybe you just started out, this would definitely be a good video for you, because we're going to talk about some of the things maybe we didn't know when we jumped into the lifestyle, and we've learned along the way.
Yep.
So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And number one would be cost of living. And before we scare anybody away here and we talk about these, that's not the intention here. It's just to enlighten you on some things you may not know or may not be ready for if you're thinking about full-time RV living.
Maybe you haven't taken into consideration a few things.
Yeah, it's not all sunshines and rainbows like you see on Instagram, and we're not just out at national parks every day and living that life.
It's not a grand adventure every single day.
No, there's still regular lifestyle.
We still have to live a life.
There's still kids and schooling and jobs for some of us and working and living in a small space, and there's all kind of things. But let's get down to it. Number one, cost of living.
Which can really vary.
Yes, this is a big one. This is not set in stone.
Expensive for everyone. It isn't cheap for everyone.
This question comes up all the time too.
Are you gonna be able to save money? Maybe. Are you, you know, can you live cheaper in an RV than you can in a sticks and bricks? Maybe.
Yeah, it depends on how you're gonna go about this. I mean, if you're gonna be boondocking, are you gonna be staying in expensive RV parks? Is your camper paid for? Do you have a payment on it? Are you still working? Are you retired? What's your income? This is the biggest question to answer, and we get it all the time. Like, oh, I get it asked all the time. Is it cheaper to live full time than it was in your house? And I don't even know sometimes. It just depends on how you go about it for everybody's situation too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just varies so much. I would definitely recommend know what you want to do or how you want to live the full-time RV life. Are you looking to stay at nice resorts, or do you want to be out in the middle of nowhere boondocking and living off solar? Know what kind of lifestyle I think you want to do, and then plan for that. And then you can actually kind of set up a decent budget that way.
Yeah, I mean, planning is key for us.
We stay at parks longer. We get the monthly rates or the seasonal rates, and that's a big savings right there. And we're not towing as much that way either, so we're not spending a fortune in diesel every year towing the camper around.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I will say that if you buy a camper flat out, just have it paid for, no payment on your RV, motorhome, camper, van, and you want to boondock and not pay and stay on Bureau land management places, you could actually live this lifestyle for really cheap.
What do you think of my spread, huh?
Or if you want $1 million Prevost RV and you want to stay at the RV resorts with the spas that are probably somewhere like $2,000 every 2 weeks or something, then it will be an extremely expensive. And if you can afford it,
I mean, more power to you.
I wish I could. Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. So.
Yeah.
Just to answer the question, it really is there is no one answer to this question, but I do want people to be prepared that it's not as cheap as you may think. If you just want to get away from your house and your mortgage payment, your electric bill, and you're thinking it has to be cheaper living on the road, that's not necessarily true. And that actually brings us into number two, and that is kind of goes along with cost of living, and that is campground availability. So if you think you're just going to get a camper and jump in full-time life, and hey, you were just going to go book somewhere next week, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen anymore.
No.
Sorry, folks, park's closed. The moose out front should have told you.
Not anymore.
COVID is a big reason.
Change things.
And us, YouTubers and people, and getting the word out about this full-time RV life has really blown up. Also, before that, I think a combination of the two has made this lifestyle really, really popular. and finding places to stay is becoming extremely difficult. Everybody's doing it. Tons of people are doing this, and there's just not enough campgrounds around the country to accommodate all of us. And the campground prices, that's another reason prices are going up as well in the campgrounds. But you have to book way in advance. Now, don't get me wrong, if you want an overnighter, for the most part, you can usually go to any campground, kind of pull in off the road for the night, and they're going to have a space for a night and this and that. Or even if you just want to do the Walmart overnight thing. But if you are looking for a little bit of an extended stay for a cheaper rate, if you want to stay a month somewhere, sometimes even just a week, you're going to have to book in advance.
Or on, holiday weekends and during the summertime.
Yeah. A year in advance for national parks. Easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we had to book
We
a year in
experienced
advance
that.
when
Yeah.
we were just
we were
trying
trying
to
to stay in Yellowstone, just a tent camp. Yeah. And so if you want to do like camping in the national parks, they recommend you do a year to year and a half in advance. If you want a nice resort around the national parks, we're almost to the point where we're booking close to 2 years in advance now, and it works for us, and it's kind of easy for us. Again, with my job and work and everything like that, that works for us. But it's not as easy. No. And with that, we will move on to number 3. And it is repairs and things breaking. Now, I was ready for this one. Again, we did a lot of research because I wanted to pick out what I felt the best quality RV at the time in our price budget, and we did go with the Grand Design, and I have been extremely happy with it, especially from what I read about other people's experience with Grand Design and other companies, but that doesn't mean that they're not without their flaws. Plenty of things will break. And they have. I would say that if you're not too much of a handy person, this lifestyle may not be for you. It requires a lot of fixing and learning and repairing and troubleshooting. And if you think you're just going to call an RV tech out all the time, one, it's going to get expensive for the RV techs to come out. And 2, they're not very available nowadays. As soon as you call an RV tech, they're like, well, I can squeeze you in 2 weeks because they're so busy, because this lifestyle is so popular. If you can even find one. And of course, these things happen on weekends anyways. They're not going to be around. So that's just something that you're better off if you're handy, or if you be willing to fix something yourself. Because once you full-time RV too, you don't want to take it back to the dealership and get it fixed. You live in it now. They're going to keep it. Yeah. They're once in a while, if it's something that they can maybe fix quick, they'll be like, okay, we're going to bump you up. We can get that done today. You can sleep in it overnight. But nowadays, with parts and things on back order, it is so hard to get parts and pieces, and they're going to have your RV in their dealership for a few weeks at least. These campers, they're not automobiles. They're not made at factory assembly lines by machines. There's just people building these like carpenters in the plants one at a time. And again, think about what we're doing with this thing. We're hitching it up, putting thousands of miles on it. It's bouncing, it's jumping around,
It's an earthquake.
Yeah, we've heard it before. It's an earthquake going down the road, and it really is.
Everything is vibrating.
Only 7 more miles to go.
We need help.
Things are going to happen. It's not really the builder's fault, but don't get me wrong. There are some corners that seem to be cut. There is some shady craftsmanship going on sometimes, but even in the nicest of units, things are still going to rattle loose. Things are still going to break. So you will have to fix things. You will have to do your research. That's the best thing I can tell you. And I'll tell you right now, I have tons of videos out, and I'll put a link up to our RV maintenance playlist right up here. And that's one of the biggest things I help people out with, is how to fix, repair, troubleshoot things that we've come across as we come across it. And most of the things really aren't that hard, but they are going to happen. So just be ready for that, wouldn't you say?
Yep. And I've had to fix a few things when he hasn't been home.
When I'm gone, and
I just have to do it. Sometimes he's on the phone with me, guiding me through it. But I mean,
I always say
it's
just like a house. Things happen with the house. You got to get a new roof. You got to get a new foundation. Things break in your house. Plumbing. I think people expect these to be some kind of miracle when they get them, and nothing's going to go wrong. It is a little disappointing when you buy it brand new, when you're in the first few weeks and things aren't going right and things are breaking. But all the little kinks seem to work themselves out. But just overall, just be ready for that.
Don't be discouraged.
Yeah.
Damn you all to hell!
Yeah. Stay there, stick it out. You're gonna learn some things maybe you didn't know. Everything's not as hard as it may seem to get fixed. And
Except for that motor on that Schwintek slide, but
that was hard. Yeah,
that
fixing the
was
slide out
worst.
motor was really hard. What do you think about that job?
This is bull. Sorry.
That's about how that job goes, huh? Tell by my hair how taxing that was. It can be a little stressful, but not too bad.
Speaking of stressful, that brings brings us to number 4, travel days.
Travel days.
Travel days can be stressful for some.
Yes.
I'm one of those some. I get a little stressed out just because I'm always imagining what might go wrong.
So always imagine the worst case scenario, but hey, let's be honest, the worst case scenario can happen anytime you get into your car going down the road.
Yeah.
This is something new for most people when they get behind the wheel of a big rig or an RV, motorhome, whatever it is. And travel days can be a little bit stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are you pulling your whole life behind you when you're full-time RVing and everything you own, but you're usually traveling somewhere you don't know, and directions and other people and kids in the back seat, and just there's so many things that come into play on travel days that you're trying to get somewhere on time, you're trying to meet a deadline, you got to check in. So travel days can be really stressful. The important thing, slow down, I think. You know what you say?
Yeah, take your time.
Yeah, take your time with everything.
Breaking camp.
Yeah, breaking
And,
camp, setting up
you
camp.
know, don't be in a
travel.
rush on the road.
Yeah.
And
It's okay if you don't make your destination. You got your house with you. You can always park in a parking lot anywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and try to keep your cool. You know, when things do go wrong.
Accidents are going to happen on the road. They've happened to us. Looks like we've had the tire come off of here. Looks like the hub actually came off of there. May have to get towed. So we'll see what happens here. We always just try to keep the number one most important thing in our mind that, hey, we're all safe.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a big deal. It's going to cost us money, or we got to get it fixed, but we're all okay. You know, we'll get through this.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to ruin our plans or this or that, or you got a bunch of reservations lined up and you got to change everything. And, you know, that just adds to the stress. But if you just try to stay calm and cool and be like, okay, let's just focus on the problem at hand and we'll deal with everything as it happens. That is life on the road. So if you don't have the stomach for driving or pulling one of these, or the fear of, you know, when a flat tire may happen or something breaks, again, it's, you know, double think this lifestyle, because it's going to happen. It's just part of living life on the road and putting thousands of miles on these things. Eventually, you're going to run into some kind of incident or accident, you know, and have a good plan for it. Be ready for it. Carry the proper equipment. Have a plan. Know who to call when something happens. These are all things that will make that day less stressful, and when that happens, less stressful. I try to be as prepared as I can. I carry extra leaf springs with me. We have all, and they came in handy.
Yes.
When we broke a leaf spring, hey, I had the leaf spring ready to go, and that saved us tons of time. There's tons of things that you can do to reduce the stress on the road by being prepared, and that includes
Prepared as much as possible. You know.
Yeah.
When the axle broke, it's not like we had a spare
I didn't have a spare axle on me, but we just went 28 miles on 3 wheels with the one wheel taken off, and it blocked up so that we could run on 3 wheels. Yeah, you do what you can, you know. You make sure you know how to change that flat. You make sure you have the proper equipment for the flat, or you make sure you know your roadside assistance number, who you're going to call. And part of reducing the stress is the route planning itself, and looking into your route so you don't end up on that dead-end road where you got to back up 500 feet, or, you know, you hit a wrong turn or you hit construction, or you end up in the middle of a city that you didn't want to be in.
And that could still happen because maybe your GPS kind of didn't tell you
But
about that.
You'll get through it.
That
Yeah,
roadblock.
just take it slow, take it easy. And we do have a video, and I'll put a link up to that as well, kind of about our RV route planning, how I plan, what apps I use, and everything I do to try to make that moving day as less stressful as I can. Along with, we use a lot of checklists and everything for breaking down and setting up camp, and that really comes in handy too, because if you rush out of camp, you're going to miss something, and it's going to then turn into a major something.
Like, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? I know he has a checklist. I know he's checking it, but to make myself feel better, I'm always like, you know, did you check? Make sure that
and that's
everything
good.
This is locked down. And
double check everything. Do your
or
full
checking it
walk-arounds.
myself.
Yeah.
Because we usually are breaking and setting up together.
Yeah, and most of the time you're going to be in a rush, and you're going to be trying to hurry in, and that's a problem. You got a long day of driving. Make your day traveling shorter. that's a huge
If
one.
at all possible.
Yeah, that will definitely help you reduce stress with shorter days. Yeah. Always check your weather. Check the wind. We've actually had to pull over due to weather. Here's the crew hanging out on the side of the road while we buy our time. No sense towing with 40, 45 mile per hour gusts and wind. And weather can make driving extremely stressful. And that's going to bring us to our next topic, which is the weather. And now that you full-time RV, weather's a big part of your life. So that's going to be number 5. Knowing the weather every day, whether you're driving or stationary, no matter what it is. And speaking of the weather, it's actually getting really cloudy here and getting windy. And I think we should move to a different location.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe move inside, or
I'm
maybe
getting,
I don't
getting
know.
cold.
Get out of the wind.
Yeah, get out of the wind. So we'll be right back with the weather. Okay, so we were just about to talk about weather before the weather made us move inside. Weather is now a big part of your life if you're a full-time RVer.
Pretty good at checking the weather, checking if it's going to be freezing, what we need to do in the camper to be prepared for freezing temps.
And freezing temps can really wreak havoc if you're not prepared for it
Yeah.
when full-time RVing, so that's something you need to know about. We've experienced that more than we wanted to this past year. And extreme, dangerous, severe weather is really important too. And every time you get to a campground or wherever you're staying, you need to know where the shelter's at, which we had to do one time. Yeah, we had extreme tornadoes coming through and we had to exit the RV. And usually you can talk to your campground and find out about where to go to, a bathhouse or whatever it may be in case of a tornado and stuff like that.
Some campgrounds don't have any sort of shelter, so you want to know that too.
Yep. Just kind of always have a little bit of a plan. And also back to route trip planning, moving around the country, and kind of knowing that weather in that part of the country during that time of year. We avoid the hurricane area down in the south during hurricane season. We obviously try to avoid the winter. We try to avoid the tornado alley in spring, and whether it be forest fires out west, just kind of look into that area, kind of know what kind of weather they have before you go there. Yep. Yeah, it's a big thing.
All right, so number 6 is basically talking about how to live in a tiny space, downsizing, living with less, if you want to call it that.
Yep, this may be something that will make or break it for you. You think you can do it. And if you're not prepared to live in a smaller space and get rid of a bunch of crap, this life may not be for you either. You really have to downsize. And you're not just limited by your space that the RV allows, but by your weight limit that the RV allows as well. And when you full-time RV in a RV, your weight limit goes up really, really quick. Yes.
Yeah, which, you wouldn't think just, one more coffee mug, extra few books to read, something like that.
It
The weight
all adds up to your cargo
goes
capacity.
So fast. Yeah.
And if you're not a very organized person, it can be hard too because you're living in a small area, and if you don't kind of have like a space for everything, it's going to get very messy and very dirty quick. You're thinking, oh, I live in a small space, it's easy to clean, this and that. Well, that's kind of true, but it also is going to get cluttered very fast and dirty very fast, and you're going to find you don't have places for everything. So you kind of need to be organized, and everything kind of needs to have its set space. And a funny joke.
It's hard.
It is.
It's hard.
It is. When you're limited on a space, you start just sticking things anywhere. You're like, oh, here's a hole, here's a nook, here's a cranny, and you're like, where did I put that? But it's very true. You're gonna have to learn to let go. That's one of the reasons you want to live this lifestyle is instead of the things that you owning you, feel free, get rid of them. It's kind of a freeing feeling, just having less stuff. You really find out how much you don't need to live this lifestyle, and you'll adapt. And it's an ever-changing, evolving process.
Some of us struggle more than others.
Yes, but she's working on it. That was definitely number 6 on our list, and it can be hard to adjust to.
Yeah. But you can do it.
Yep. And last but not least, number 7, the truths about full-time RV living, something you may not think about, and that is neighbors. And this can be a pro or a con, but you may not be used to living 6 feet away from your neighbors, which you will be.
Sometimes.
The walls are thin.
Yes.
Okay? You have to understand that they're going to hear everything you can do. You can usually hear everything that they're doing, whether they're inside or outside. If they have kids or dogs, you have to get used to having neighbors. Most of the time, it's a great experience. We really haven't had bad neighbors. We've met great friends, But if for some reason you're not used to that, it's going to be a learning process because you're always going to be outside. You're going to be right next to them. And that's just part of RV living. Yeah. Most of the time you make great lifelong friends like we do.
Depending on what type of neighbors you like to have, which is you're fine with having them or you aren't, it can also determine what kind of campground you're going to go to.
Yeah.
And we're fine with neighbors, so
if you don't like the neighbors you have, you can always get up and move.
That's true.
Unlike a house where we've had some horrific neighbors living in sticks and bricks.
That's the neighbor from hell.
And there's not much we could do about it. Well, now if we have neighbors like that, well, guess what? You live in your home, you can move it somewhere else, and it's not that big of a deal. Now, a lot of times the neighbors are going to just be weekenders. Weekenders coming and going, and as full-time RVers, I think most of us always joke about it. We kind of live for Mondays. As bad as it sounds, we're usually happy to see Monday come, and we're usually happy to see all the weekend campers leave and leave us back to our peaceful campground where it's peaceful and quiet again. But we've met some great people on the weekends and this and that.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a joke that full-time RVers, like, you know, we're always like, oh, it's Monday, and there they all go, and it's peaceful and quiet again. So even if you have some bad neighbors, a lot of times maybe they're just going to be there for the week or an overnight stay and move on. So.
Yeah.
But overall, these are 7 things that we've learned about RV living full-time now that you may not think about before you jump into this lifestyle. Take our advice, do some research, maybe double think things, or if you're just new at it, you can always check out some of our other videos. We have a lot of solutions to a lot of these problems, such as the maintenance and the organizing and route planning and weather and all that kind of stuff. But I still say, hey, we love it. Get out there, start your full-time adventure, because
why wait?
Why wait? Catch you guys next week.